Hello, everyone. This is Yvonne and Lyle. Welcome to our true crime podcast today.
Come on right along, let me tell you a tale.
Hey, welcome back, everyone that joined us for the first episode of the Milkshake murder. And for those that you haven't been here before, please go look at our last episode. This will be part 2. And I think last week we left off from the interview with David Pettis.
Yes, we did. So today we're going to bring you a bit of Robin's interview, and it was a phone interview, so no video with this either.
Yeah, and I realize that some of the conversation is a little hard to understand. The bad part about police interviews is they don't happen in a sound studio quality recordings, so you get a little bit of that. That's not
It's
too easy.
evident in this one is because she was just on the phone and it was recorded with just a little tape recorder. So yeah, hopefully you guys can make it out.
But let's go back and recap a little bit of David's interview, because there was several things that were said in the few minutes that when you start looking at it, really kind of actually brings more suspicion than it does answers.
Yes, it does. There's a lot of little things, even a few things that Robin says that eventually comes to believe him for the most part, but she had her suspicions as well.
Right. So going back to David's interview about Peggy,
Yeah, he was saying that in 2016, she was gored by a hog, and that's when she started taking pain medication.
she passes away in 2018. So we got a 2-year period, right?
Right. When there was also some mention of 2 years before that, her mom had some of the hydrocodone, and Peggy had supposedly been taking that as well, according to what he had to say.
Right. So again, trying to put that in perspective, when we looked at what Peggy had gotten, she'd gotten like one prescription for a very small amount of
Right.
hydrocodone.
And
Right.
then he was saying that she bought, what, 3 bottles home from her mom's that were 90 count? Yeah.
But again, with her mom passing away in
Yeah.
2014, that
We're
would
talking
have
about 4 years altogether.
right.
That
So
wouldn't have lasted very long.
no, not at 3 pills a day. A 90 count's only going to last you 30 days.
Right.
So how does pain medication from 4 years ago, add up?
Last that long if you're taking that much of it.
Now, Dave also had a prescription, but it wasn't a very large amount either. And it was
No.
quite some time before all that. So what Dave had to say about the hydrocodone isn't really adding up. Dave talks about her handling all the bills and being the account manager for the business.
Yeah, he says that he didn't have anything to do with that and that she was forgetting to make payments. But when it was looked into, it wasn't so much that she wasn't making payments, but there was a lot of bounced checks and, non-sufficient funds that was really going on.
Yeah, there are like a lot of families, they're just getting by paycheck to paycheck, right?
Yeah, yeah. So it was basically her income from being a bus driver, and he had a dump truck, was it? What was
Sounds to me like he had a couple of different trucks over the years. One of them was a logging truck and maybe a dump truck.
And so he had a driver and he was doing a little bit of the driving, and that was where their money was coming from.
But even at that, she's working as a bus driver, and I think her coworkers had some interesting things to say as well.
Yeah, they were speaking about how they would see her take some Tylenol, and she would take a couple of those every once in a while, and she had absolutely no problem swallowing pills, and she didn't take anything more than that, just the Tylenol.
Right. I mean, it seems kind of in conflict with what Dave is saying, especially being a school bus driver and
Yeah.
having a CDL license.
You can't really do that if you've got memory problems. He was saying that she was struggling with her memory. She was in a lot of pain. And we both have had parents that had memory issues. And I know that if she was struggling the way he was saying, I don't think she'd be driving a bus up until almost the year that she died. I mean,
Right. And on top of that, all we've talked about is hydrocodone, but she has to take occasional
drug tests.
random drug tests,
Mhm.
So what about the possibility of losing her job if she's taking medication the way that he's saying? So another part that Dave kind of contradicts himself about is this relationship his dad and his son, he says, are not talking to him.
Right. There's one point where he says they're not talking, and then there's another point where he's like, hey, go talk to him. But we should explain that his dad is not really his dad. He had two sets of sort of like foster parents
Parents.
that
Yep.
weren't really his parents or his foster parents. There were people that helped him when his mom left him and his dad, and
Took him in when he was much younger. And now they've come to live with Dave and Peggy, and they've been there for like the last 16 months.
right. And one of the fathers has passed away, and that's who he went. Supposedly, that's what he went to New York for in November, was for the funeral. But this set is now living with him and has been there since, 16 months.
Right.
But they said that the reason that they aren't talking to him is because they don't quite believe his story either.
Right. They were there the night that Peggy passed away.
Right.
And they've had the opportunity to observe all the rituals from the previous 16 months, such as preparing medication and
And they
food.
said they don't remember seeing any of that. And they don't remember Peggy really drinking much at all.
Right. They describe Peggy as a teetotaler to some degree, very rarely consumes alcohol.
Which makes sense if you're a bus driver.
Right. And they knew that she experienced a little bit of pain, but not the amount that Dave is expressing.
Not 3 pills of hydrocodone with alcohol.
Right. So now his dad and his son won't talk to him. Basically, they've separated ties because they don't trust him.
Right. They just don't believe his story and they don't trust him.
But during the interview now, he tells us to go talk to him like
Right.
they're going to vouch for him.
The stories, like I said, start getting a little weird.
Right. Turning to that part of the interview where we talked about Peggy's health and
Right.
going for the physical for the life insurance, Dave kind of scoffed at that point, and I hope some of you maybe caught it. He said something to the effect of, if that's what you call it.
Right. He made it seem like that they went there because Peggy was having memory problems. But when the doctor was questioned, she was like, well, no, that's not what the appointment was really for. It was for this physical so she could get insurance.
Exactly. And that's the insurance policy that ends up only taking effect 3 days before
she passes away.
Yeah.
And I think the doctor said also that she didn't notice any memory issues with her.
Right.
And she wasn't in that much pain. They had mentioned something about a sciatic hurting, but nothing like what Dave was trying to portray.
And so, then the conversation with Dave also turned to the relationship with Robin.
Right.
And he admits in the interview that he has feelings for this woman, or that he had feelings for her for the past 40 years. Pretty significant.
And in the interview, Robin will say that they were friends in high school and that he was her best friend. And there was a couple times she wanted to beat him up or whatever, kind of jokingly, but that they had reconnected though recently through Facebook about a year and a half before. And they had talked a little bit back and forth, and that she had talked to Peggy once on the phone.
Right. But more so, Dave says during his interview that Peggy basically gave her blessing for him to have an extramarital affair with Robin.
Right. And Robin tries to tell it in a nice way of how that came about.
So, as well as saying that Peggy gave her blessing to a relationship, Dave admits that he and Robin slept in the same bed. Now, he basically says that nothing happened, but she rubbed his back and tried to comfort him and those kind of things. But it definitely shows the intensity of their relationship.
So the other thing that he talked about in his interview were the life insurance policies. And he said that there were two and that one of them was $150,000. But he made it seem like it wasn't going to be that big of an amount. And so that people saying that he killed her for the money, he said if it would have been like a larger amount, he could understand people coming to that conclusion.
Like, I think he said specifically $500,000 to $1 million, he could understand.
Well, what came out was that there were more than 2 policies. There was actually about 5 policies. So the amounts
actually added up closer to 500,000. Now, turns out, I don't know that all 5 were actually active at that time, but we had paperwork showing that they had multiple, and he didn't disclose any of that. So you might say a lie through omission?
Yeah, something like that. But the funny thing is when he's in this interview, he goes, well, I would understand if I was getting this big amount, but he could get that amount.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that he was hoping
Yeah, he was
that you,
hoping for it for sure, because that comes into another play of the part.
right.
So one of the final things we'd like to point out about Dave and how what he was saying in his interview was,
The conversation that he had with Robin, he created this lie telling her he had cancer. I mean, he kind of proved to her right there how easy it was for him to lie to her.
right, he actually called his son and told his son to call him at Robin's house, and then he would take the call. And
Right. He created this big scene instead of just saying, I want to go home.
I think the visit wasn't going exactly the way he planned, and he was starting to feel uncomfortable, and I actually think Robin was feeling uncomfortable.
I think really it more goes to that Dave likes to play the victim. So
Yeah.
by saying, hey, I got cancer now, he's going to get Robin to feel sorry for him. And that kind of plays out with a lot of things that Dave does.
Now we're going to listen to what Robin has to say in her phone interview.
Yeah, this is a few minutes of her 1 hour conversation.
Right.
Like you, I gotta say that I questioned him over and over about this because the circumstances were just, and I had doubts in my own mind, and I told him and he had said to me, the next thing that's going to come out of your mouth is that you think that I had something to do with her dying. And I said, the thought did cross my mind. And that's when he met with me and he left.
Okay.
I did talk to him afterwards. He did, and we talked, and I basically said to him, you were here too soon afterwards, and you don't have time to grieve. I've known David. I grew up with him, and never think. He was my best friend. And he was my neighbor and my best friend. We started out as not best friends. I have to say that. There were a few times I wanted to beat him up, but he was a little bigger than me. He has assured me that he had nothing to do with this. He has told me over and over again the same story. It's never. I asked him. He had no idea why I was asking him all these questions. And I said to him when he got here, when we had that argument, I said, why do you think I've asked you 1,000,000 times over what happened? Because it was just I don't know, it was just too odd. The whole situation was just too odd. When he was here in March, I believe, end of February, beginning of March, he kind of just made the reservation and said, I'm coming. And I thought, oh, yay, And my daughter's house that we live in.
Uh-huh.
And I live there with my daughter and my son-in-law and my granddaughter. And I just thought it was kind of odd that he came. But we had met before that at a funeral for my mother's cousin, Dick Stewart.
Okay.
So he's related to me, and he kind of helped raise David when David was younger, when David's mother left. And he got in a little bit of trouble, and Dick took him in and tried to teach him right from wrong, and he ended up going in the military.
Right.
I hadn't really talked to him in a really long time. I didn't even know he was alive or anything until I brought my mom, and she said he was living in Spokane, and he was a farmer. That's all I knew. And messaged him on Facebook years ago. And just recently he started contacting me, and we had been talking on and off, probably the past year and a half or so. I'm not even sure. It it was really odd when he came here in February, or yeah, it was like end of February, beginning of March, because he seemed to think it was going to be fishing season, and I told him it was like winter that time. It was winter here, and I questioned it then, and I even called his wife, and I had been speaking to her, and I texted her, just tell him that he comes here not to expect anything. And she texted me back the oddest text I've ever received in my life, and basically said, as you know, I can't, I don't know, she put it very delicately, but basically saying that because of her age, she wasn't able to do what she needed to do for David, and that he was hoping he had a good time while he was here. Which kind of left me sitting there with my mouth hanging open saying, what the hell is going on? He's not in the best of health. He wasn't then. He was he lost a ton of weight. I don't know. I had my suspicions until just recently. And when I talked to him, I finally realized, it was just some stupid, crazy, bizarre twist. And I mean, she felt that she got her foot caught in the sheets of the bed and fell down and hit her face. And all he could say when he was here is that all he could see was her blue face when he rolled her over and did CPR.
I'm not sure if I believe it would have been during the visit at the beginning of March when David was there. Do you recall him getting a message from home talking about...
Oh, yes. He got a message from home. This was the freakiest part of the world. Okay. So this is what happened. This is how we ended up going home. You had to refresh my memory on this when you said that. He had told me that he had had a colonoscopy a couple weeks before he came.
All right.
And I was upstairs, and he was upset. And I said, what's going on? He said, well, my son just called me. I got a letter in the mail that said I have colon cancer. All right. And I said, what the hell do you mean you got a letter in the mail? Who the hell sends a letter in the mail like that? And he said, I got a letter in the mail, and I said, well, why is your son calling? And he said, well, I had to go to my son's house, not to my house, because I didn't want to open it in case it was bad news. And I said, oh, okay. And he looked it up, and he said he had colon cancer, and it was stage 3, and he was going to die. Like it was. And when he left here, it was up in the air. He got home. And called me and said, you're never going to guess. Another David Pettis. It was a different person. They sent that person's, he called the doctor, because when he got the message, when he got from the doctor that said that, I said, well, call your freaking doctor. But it's on a piece of, it's got to be, I don't understand. So he said he called his doctor, he spoke to his doctor, and his doctor told him he did have colon cancer. And it was at stage 3. And that's when he panicked and wanted to go home. And I said, okay. And I thought, at first, well, that's just kind of just weird. And then I really thought it was bizarre when he got back home and told me it was somebody else's results that got sent to him. And I was adamant, well, you need to sue the fucking doctor for the plane bill back. That's crazy. Who does that? Who tells somebody they're dying, and then, oh, I just made a mistake. Like, no, that's serious. They flew you all the way back. You know, I mean, you flew all the way back there. They're paid for it. But he insisted it was just a mistake, and that's when I questioned it, and that's when I talked to Peggy on the phone last, because I was like, I don't even believe you, because it was just so flipping unbelievable.
Right.
And she got on the phone and she said, no, he really thought he had cancer. And he got the letter, and then he called the doctor, and he went to the doctor, and the doctor said, well, it's a different David Pettis, and I thought that's who you were calling me, and I didn't look at the file, I grabbed the wrong file, and his wife reassured me that he was telling me, because I said, you put her on the phone right now, and let me hear her tell me that's what happened.
Okay.
And she said the same thing he said. So I thought, okay. Like, it was bizarre. And I still had doubts. And I was like, there's just been so many things that have just been off about it. Like, just bizarreness that's why when this happened, like what my daughter said, well, that's the first time he left, he wasn't feeling good for something. And he was supposed to stay longer. And then he came to visit you for 2 weeks, and he only stayed like 3 days because he was dying of cancer, but got home and he's not dying of cancer. So
yeah,
it was just bizarre, you know. It was just a bizarre. And my daughter said, I just thought he moved it up so he could leave because I wasn't showing him the affection he wanted to be shown.
Right.
Here
Uh-huh.
about money,
Okay.
because I questioned him before he came and said, you're not just coming here with like nothing, right? And only credit cards, because I don't want you to be able to be here like the last time, and he was worried about the rental car, and he had called Peggy, and he was worried about money, and I know that the truck or something, he runs a logging business too, and the truck was broke down or something, and they didn't have an income coming in.
Right.
Besides hers or something at the time, and this time he came in actually, like, I said to him, he said something to me about, I could buy this house tomorrow, because he went to go look at a house. And I said, you have $250,000 in your bank account. Show me on your phone right now your bank account, and show me that you've got $250,000. And he got really upset with me over that conversation.
Okay.
And then he said to me later, because when I get upset, I just stop talking. You can talk to me until you're blue in the face, and I'm going to answer you. He said something to me the next day, and I said, all I wanted to know, he said, I had 10% down. I said, well, that's not $250. Like, I just wanted to know you had enough money while we were here to maybe, like, go out and buy groceries for the house, for my daughter, so I can say, hey, we're going grocery shopping, so shipping in. I didn't mean for him to, like, show me, he texted me the amount of money he had in the bank. Said his daughter was at the house doing his bank account and paying the bills, and he sent me a text saying how much money he had.
Okay.
So you will see that when you look into it. I don't know if that was actually on phone message or.
Do you know any other message that you communicated with just straight Google text and Facebook? Was there WhatsApp or any other messaging applications?
Just those. Facebook Messenger.
And then just mobile text.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting because she starts off on saying how they were best friends, they grew up together. He was her neighbor. They'd been Facebook friends for like 10 years. And as recently as this last year and a half, he had started messaging her on Facebook and she was messaging him back. And they were also playing Words with Friends together, but she was playing with both him and his wife, Peggy.
Right. And the bad thing about text messaging is you never really know who you're talking to.
No, you don't. And she said that when Dave had been up there visiting her, that she told him, don't expect anything. I don't want that kind of relationship. But then she said that she received a message from Peggy on Words with Friends that said that due to her age, she wasn't able to give Dave what he needed. And so that she hoped that he would have a good time when he's up there visiting her, which struck her, left her mouth hanging open
Yeah,
wide, she
She
said.
definitely was very surprised by that.
Yes.
And I think that led into one of the very first things she says during her interview is just how suspicious she was after she heard of Peggy's passing. It was like she just found it really hard to believe that Dave didn't have something to do with this based on
True.
timing.
And she did say, though, that she had had one phone conversation with Peggy. And so in your interview with her, you asked her, did it seem like it went along with what, the text messages had been? And she says yes.
Yeah.
But
So it's
family
very odd.
members didn't think that sounded normal, though. So we don't know if she was actually talking to her or not.
Right. Well, that too is the other thing is like you can talk to someone on the phone and it doesn't
true.
necessarily mean it's the person you think you're talking to.
Exactly. And if she had never spoken to Peggy before, she wouldn't know her voice.
Yeah. So that leaves a little bit of question. But then after Peggy's death, Dave makes a trip up to New York and he starts talking about buying a house.
Right. It's weird because Robin talks about how she's living with her daughter and son-in-law,
Right.
and they have a child. And so when Dave comes to visit, she wants to make sure that he has enough money to kind of help out.
Yeah, and she's not challenging him, but she's basically wanting to know whether or not they're going to have money to go do anything outside of the house, or are they going to be expected to pay for all the meals and those kind of things. But Dave doesn't take it that way.
No, he kind of puffs up and goes, I have plenty of money.
Right. And it's odd the dollar amount which he happens to mention.
Yeah, because it's one that's popped up before.
Right.
It's like $250,000. He tells her, I have money right now in my bank account that I could go buy a $250,000 house.
But when Robin challenges him on that and says, well, let me see.
Yeah, he starts backing up a little bit, backpedaling.
Yep. He gets all mad about that. And then he kind of corrects his statement the following morning.
Yeah, he goes, well, I have enough to put down a down payment.
Right. Which also coincided with what financials we were aware of. Dave did get the payout from Peggy's retirement and the life insurance that was associated with her work. But he hadn't received that $250,000 policy, and he wouldn't because of the autopsy results pending.
Right.
So they're not going to pay anything out. So I think it kind of bent his plans with Robin in buying a house.
Yeah. There were some other things that were kind of a little confusing because she was saying that she had all these suspicions about Dave and, the thought had crossed her mind that he had something to do with it because the story that he told her was that Peggy was getting out of bed and got her foot caught in the sheets and fell and hit her face. And that's why she died.
Right. And this kind of goes to some of the stories that he had told other people that we mentioned very early in the previous episode, which is Dave had told some people how she'd gotten her leg tangled and she had fallen, and other people he's talking about water coming out of her mouth. Not to say that multiple things couldn't have happened in one incident, but none of that was consistent with the investigation.
Nor the autopsy.
So, well, Dave has been placed under arrest at the end of our initial interview, and he spent some time in Spokane County Jail waiting for trial.
He actually was released from jail and then didn't go back until later when they re-arrested him.
Right. Well, there was some concern about the various evidence because, as you can imagine from hearing this case, it's mostly all circumstantial. But there was further analysis of the communications that he was having with Robin and how frequent they were versus like the communications he had with Peggy before her death. So all of those kind of things had to be looked at. And then once the prosecutor was satisfied, they went ahead and issued a new arrest warrant.
David's trial was postponed a couple of times due to COVID and some other findings,
But he was eventually tried in Spokane County Superior Court.
and he was found guilty of first-degree murder, and he was sentenced to 25 years in prison.
I'd just like to say that while I was the original detective on this investigation, Detective Mark Melville of Spokane County Sheriff's Office did a significant amount of the work on this case to take it to trial, and he was the final investigator when court did take place. So good work on his part, as well as a number of other detectives within the department that brought this case to a successful prosecution. We hope that you've enjoyed today's episode, Milkshake Murder Part 2, with the conclusion of the death of Peggy Pettis and the finding of her husband guilty. Please click, like, and subscribe.
And we will catch you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
From our hearts to yours, we hope you find a little bit of hope on the blue